Welcome to BizTV's Beyond the Brand. I'm Kelly Phillips. Today I'm joined by Jeffrey Fry with Keep Safe Care. Jeffrey founded Keep Safe Care after his experience caring for his mother. The mission of Keep Safe Care is to transform caregiving in America by first transforming the lives of caregivers. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Beyond the Brand. Are you wondering how to ensure your loved ones are cared for in a loving manner? Our next guest has the answers. We're thrilled to have Jeffrey Fry from Keep Safe Care here with us today. And Jeffrey, kind of give us your background. Where'd you grow up? What was life like before you got into what you're doing now?
Well, actually, I was not in the healthcare profession. I'm an electrical engineer by trade, and I grew up in Virginia, which, believe it or not, is my family's ancestral home from way back when. So went to school, went to Lafayette College in Eastern Pennsylvania, and my first gig was working with Texas Instruments here in Texas as an electrical engineer. And I worked for a variety of companies, and part of my pedigree is I helped design like the first digital cellular phone with Nokia.
Wow.
When I was in Florida. So, invention is kind of what I do. But before that, at Texas Instruments, what I was known for was being very efficient, doing more with less. And Texas Instruments' name was also the Training Institute. So it gave me an education beyond my education, which has kind of led me to where I am now. I left Texas, stupidly, and got back here as quickly as I could.
So, welcome back.
Yeah, and I'm not leaving again.
There you go.
Unless my feet are with my feet in the air. That would be the only way I'm doing it. So,
well, how'd you get into Keep Safe Care? Where did that come from?
Well, it was kind of interesting because, of course, I come from a dysfunctional family like most of America does. When my first son was born, my family and I separated for reasons that will go unmentioned. But for 20 years, I hadn't spoken to my mother or father or brother. Long story short, my brother dies, but not a bad thing. It was a good thing because I spoke to him before his death. He actually, we reconciled and everything went well. So the first time I see my mom in 20 years, I have to bury my brother in D.C., which is Virginia. Now we're in Alexandria. So my mom was a very sharp lady, worked for the State Department for 49 years. But when I visited her, she wasn't altogether there. So I hired a big private duty agency, brand name. Long story short, 9 months down the road, she's in the hospital. She's in the hospital for something really not, that's preventable. They weren't giving her a shower. She had a cut, got infected, got sepsis. She almost died. She was in the hospital 60 days. So I said, that's it. You're moving down here with me to Texas. And so, that's always the thing. The youngest son always takes care of mom. So best thing I ever did was she could have stayed in assisted living if she wanted to. Mm-hmm. She had plenty of money. But I decided to have her stay with me, hired a local smaller private duty agency that was non-franchise. My mom's bilingual, Spanish and English. Finally got a good caregiver, Juanita. And after about 9 months, Juanita says, hey, Jeffrey, I can't work for Gladys anymore. I said, why not? And she goes, well, I got a new job. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. Now, granted, I was actually working on another startup at the time, and that's why I needed this help. And so I said, hey, Juanita, I've been thinking about hiring my own caregiver, but I don't know something. And she says, how much are they paying you? Now, the minute before she answered that question, I thought I was a very well-informed person. The minute afterwards, I found out how really ignorant it was. She was making $825. And then, the look on my face, she actually grabbed my arm and said, no, Jeffrey, I'm getting a raise. I said, oh, thank goodness, what? $850.
That's it?
At that moment, two things, that's incredible. At that moment, two things happened. One, I knew why my mom came back in my life. And two, I said, wait a second, she should be making more money, and there's a lot of margin to be made in this business, right? So I knew nothing about it. So this started me on my journey, is that luckily I had mom stay with me. So I found out what this problem was, the plight of caregivers. And I promised my mother, and the whole reason I did this, I said, Mom, you're an accomplished woman. Just doesn't seem fair. So I promised her, hey, I'm really good with efficiency. I'm going to try to fix this. So may my mom rest in peace. Once she passed away, I decided to pursue this, and this is where we are now. And there's a few things that have been done with efficiency that allows us to pay our caregivers substantially more.
Wow, it's incredible that your mom inspired all of this.
Yeah.
What sets your franchise apart from other companies?
Well, the most important thing is the way that we looked at it, we tried to be more efficient. And the first thing that we did was see what waste was there. So remember, I'm an engineer, and we always do something called a gap analysis or a Pareto analysis. That 20% of anything gets rid of 80% of the cost, which is true. Actually, Pareto had it right. So one of the things we looked at was, okay, what are the biggest problems with private duty caregivers, essentially, and how can we solve that? Well, one of the big reasons caregivers don't get good money is because most private duty agencies are spending a lot of money on a back office chasing caregivers. So I said, well, let's flip this on its head. I don't know really anything about a private duty agency. So if I was going to start one from scratch, what would I do? Well, I'd put all the things that are not involved with caregiving online, like on the web. That's a good tool. So we had to write a piece of software to do it. And part of the software is the recruiting aspect of it. So we combine recruiting with curation, management, and payment of caregivers. So instantly we get rid of like $350,000 to $500,000 of cost. Well, when you get rid of that cost, you pay it forward to your caregivers. And part of what we did with that is that we came up with something called the 2/3 rule. And the 2/3 rule is we have to pay at least 2/3 or 67% of whatever we charge our clients to the caregiver. Now, here's where doing a little market research and everything really pays off. The best anybody does right now is around 50%. Most private duty agencies pay about 40 to 45%. So what does that do when you can pay a caregiver $5 to $8 more per hour? Well, here we go again. In the private duty sector, the two biggest problems are truancy and turnover. And turnover means you don't get consistent care from week to week. You get a different caregiver. The industry has 25% truancy and 83% turnover. Oh, and remember, I'm an engineer, so I like big numbers. So our truancy is less than 1%. Our turnover is now less than 5%. So that's running an agency. So we could be profitable, actually more profitable, by using less people and paying our caregivers more. We've proven that. So
that's
the next
huge.
thing that yeah, it's a big deal. So remember, I helped design the first digital cellular phone. How big is that market? I did other things like broadband and JPEG and MPEG and all these markets that grow huge. Well, caregiving next to the military is the second biggest industry in the United States. And so our mission is to change that, redo caregiving in America. So we did it on a single level. And you asked the question, well, how are you going to do that on a franchise? Well, the way that we run our thing is really a software. It's like Salesforce.com, right? You can run a private duty online out of your house. And because you're able to do that, you save a lot of money. So how can I extend that beyond just, Austin? Well, the way that I looked at it says, well, we're really selling a software license, but I got to call it a franchise because of regulations in states like New York and California and various other states. So the way that we looked at it says, well, I'm going to do an FDD, which, is a franchise. But we're really not a franchise. So I have to brand it differently. And I'm also kind of a good branding and marketing person. So how do we brand it? Well, we call it an ultralight franchise. And by ultralight, it costs about 1/10 of a typical First Light, Visiting Angels, right at home franchise. And we don't charge royalties. We charge a flat fee because it's software. And so we're astronomically less expensive to run a private duty agency. And we don't take as much fees because our overhead is so much lower. So it's, they always talk about cheaper, faster, better in the engineering thing in the semiconductor world. We just applied those, engineering methodologies and techniques to private duty. And so far it's working well. So that's where we are.
And it's all due to your background because you crunch numbers and make things better and more efficient. There are lots of other questions that I have for you, but we need to take a quick break. So, Jeffrey, don't go away. We'll be right back to talk more about Keep Safe Care.
Thank you.
And we're back with Jeffrey Fry of Keep Safe Care. And Jeffrey, I've got to ask, how have you seen things change over the past year, and where do you see this going in the next 5 years?
Well, the big change, and everybody is starting to realize that caregiver wages are starting to go up.
Yeah.
And because of the way that the industry is run, private duty per hourly costs are going up. And it's quickly becoming out of reach of a lot of people in America to even afford a caregiver. When I was taking care of my mother in Austin, the rate was $25 an hour. Mm-hmm. It's now somewhere north of $35 an hour. Now, the problem is that caregivers are only making like $2 or $3 more an hour than they were 10 years ago. And that's going to create a problem. So in the startup world, there's something called a long-term strategic competitive advantage. So and that's in every startup that you look at. So our long-term strategic competitive advantage is that we can pay our caregivers more and not have to raise the price more. So I'll give you an example. If a client is being charged $36 in Austin, I'm paying my caregiver $24 an hour. Mm-hmm. My competitors are paying $18. If they pay their caregiver $24, they're charging $50. I'm charging $36. So multiply that all over the country, right? So not only can we pay our caregivers more, we keep the brakes on the ever increasing cost of caregiving in the United States. And as our baby boomers, I'm at the very edge of that, by the way, when baby boomers start to age out, we're going to need more and more caregivers. But caregivers are not electing to stay as caregivers because the wages are so low. So it's like a vicious cycle, which we've kind of broken to make it a competitive advantage. You always look at what's the weakest of an industry and attack that. Mm-hmm. And if you could solve that problem, I believe in the power of and, you can have great caregivers and pay them well and not raise the price. You're going to win. And I've kind of done this even though I'm an engineer, my focus has always been on sales and marketing of technology. We're using technology to solve a huge problem in the United States, which is everyone complains about a caregiver shortage. We don't have a problem with a caregiver shortage. It's not a caregiver shortage, it's a wage shortage. So that's what we're addressing.
Now, is Keep Safe Care in other places, or is it just solely based in the Austin area?
Well, we sold our first franchise to a gentleman that was in Cedar Park. He now has bought all the franchises in Austin, which were 6 of them, including our Alpha, which was our test bed. The Austin Keep Safe Care Central Austin, essentially, that's how we had to test out the software. So, I could think of things and say, oh, this sounds like a great idea. But actually, as what Mike Tyson once says, all the best laid plans are put to rest as soon as someone punches you in the nose. Same thing with running a business. As soon as you put it out there, oops, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. Oh, I didn't know that. So we kind of learn. And one of the things that we learned when I was doing it, after the first couple of years, I said, we're paying our caregivers about 2/3 of what we're charging our clients. So we trademarked that. And we also trademarked, we take care of our caregivers so they can take better care of you. And that's essentially, we're not really a caregiving company, we're a caregiver company. And because we take care of our caregivers, they take better care of our clients. And essentially, we also stole a lot of things like the gig economy, like Uber and all these other things. So even though our caregivers are W-2s, they own that gig. We allow the clients to have their telephone number. They have the client's telephone number. They change the schedules as they see fit, and we verify it with an EVV. So we're doing all the things to allow the relationship between the caregiver and the client to be closer, not less apart.
Yeah. Can you share a success story? I mean, obviously your mom, because she put this in your brain for this to all become what it's become. But can you think of another success story that you can share with us?
Now, was this with Keep Safe Care or just anything in general?
Yes, just Keep Safe Care.
Well, I could do it on 2 things.
Okay.
One is with caregivers. So one of the things that we have found out is that we get a lot of our referrals from home health and hospice. And when we go in and talk to the nurses, there's one here in Austin, Inhabit. They give us a lot of referrals. I went in and talked to them and told them how much we pay the caregivers. And when I said that much, there was an audible gasp. And the audible gasp was because all these nurses were CNAs at one time, and they were getting paid $8, $8.50, whatever. And their thing was, one of the person says, there's no way you could do that. So I had to explain it to them. And so part of what has happened with some of our caregivers, they had their cars in Hawk. They've gotten them out. They weren't able to afford an apartment. They now can afford an apartment. And one of the things that I found out, and we trademarked both of these, empowering caregivers and empowering caregiving. And the reason why, so when I go in and we talk to, and this was an unintended consequence. I didn't even know about this. 97% of all caregivers are female. Mm-hmm. They tend to be women that have melanin in their skin, right? They might be single mothers. One of the things we're able to do is give them a little bit more power. And so I asked the nurses, it says, what gives women power? And they're really sheepish about answering this. And they go, money. I said, yeah. What gives them more money, more power, more money? I said, yeah. So we give our caregivers more power. We empower them to make decisions that are correct. So we've also worked with a partner called Relevate that gives a no-cost payday advance. They also coach them on how to manage their finances, right? Because nobody ever taught them that. And that's not my charter. My charter is make sure they're getting good money and taking care of the clients. So we partner with people to focus on caregivers. We also, partnered with Stride Health. I'm dropping all these names. I hope they appreciate it. I get nothing in return. But these are companies that help caregivers with their life. And so caregivers are like the forgotten people. They do this great task, mm-hmm. and nobody sees them. Nobody cares about them. It's like they're the last people think about, even though they're the first people you need. So when I interview, and here's some of the success stories that we have. Our very first client, because we had such a good caregiver, she was supposed to, Hospice Austin referred her to us, Parker, and she was supposed to pass away in 6 weeks to 3 months. Because she got such good care, she lived for another 2.5 years independently. And it was like, oh, well, and at the end, we got her a really good home that, she was able to pass nicely after the last 3 months. But caregiver, I saw right then, when you get really good caregivers, consistent care, the health of the clients improve. Our second success was, because we don't have a carousel of caregivers, we got a referral for a wonderful lady that needed 24/7 care. They actually bought a house right next to her so she could do that. They said for 3 years, they never had a consistent caregiving team. And we had 4 caregivers that we'll call it Team Michelle, right? So we had the caregivers, they talked to each other, they had to change their schedule. It was always covered. It was so good that I went in one time to sit with her because there was like a 2-hour gap, and I'm talking to her and she's talking about Yankee Lake. And I said, Yankee Lake? Where the heck is that? Oh, that's in upstate New York. When I go with Sam, who's Sam? My son. And so I was telling the daughter-in-law, I says, she's supposed to have dementia. She's not supposed to remember that.
But she did.
Oh, yeah. She remembered it. And she was very detailed about going. I said, we could go up to Yankee Lake this summer. I said, I'm sorry, I've never been to Yankee Lake. I said, oh, you should come. And her end of life was so much better because she had consistent care. The stress went down. She was well fed. She got plenty of rest, and she wasn't stressed anymore. She knew when new caregivers came in. So she was familiar with all 4 of the caregivers, and she knew the routine. So again, I didn't know anything about caregiving. I really didn't. I'm an engineer. The only caregiver I knew was my mom. But when I found out that when you hire really good caregivers and you have that team and that's consistent care, it translates into it. So when she passed, the clients, the adult children, gave our caregivers a big bonus. I don't know what it was. And I said, don't tell me because I don't want to have to tax it.
But
I don't know. Might have been $1.
But just the joy and the pure happiness that you gave that family. I mean, that's huge when your loved ones are getting the care that they need and they deserve when it comes to end of life.
Absolutely.
If folks are needing more information about Keep Safe Care, where can they go? How can they find out more?
Just keepsafecare.com. Right on our website, we tout how well we pay our caregivers. That's really the most important thing that we do. Everything is focused around the caregiver first. And when I did the franchise, as you were mentioning, I looked at every franchise, the top 10, top 50. Not one of them mentions how they take care of their caregivers. And I'm like, okay, I could say I'm taking great care of my clients, but if I don't have good caregivers, I'm really not.
Yeah.
And so, I again, sales and marketing, right? You got to stand behind your brand, and the brand is we hire the best caregivers, and because we hire the best caregivers, I don't have to worry if my clients are being taken care of. I know they are, and it was the analysis that we did, and it has been really successful. So, I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you. I have no staff. We have a census of 30 clients, and I'm not getting any calls. And why? Because the caregivers are taking care of everything. So as we expand throughout the United States, our goal is to have 1,000 locations in 3 to 5 years.
Jeffrey Fry, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
KeepSafeCare.com. Thanks for watching BizTV's Beyond the Brand. Be sure to subscribe to the BizTV YouTube channel, where you'll find full episodes of this show, fresh BizTV content, and a few surprises each week to help you stay inspired.